Okay, good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody and open the Emergency Special Village Board meeting on Tuesday, May 12th at approximately 6 p.m. In order for everyone to hear, would you please shut off any dogs, crying babies, or other noisemakers you may have in the background? Are allowed, don't worry about that. Roll call, please.
Lino,
Here.
Baker,
Here.
Bertle,
Here.
Bell,
Here.
Duffy,
Here.
Kadunkel,
Here.
and Nino.
Here.
Okay. Would you please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of the agenda.
So moved.
I'll make that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approval of the minutes as published.
I'll make that motion,
So moved. I'll second Duffy's.
whichever way you want to put it.
Any changes or comments on the minutes?
No.
If not, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Comments, correspondence, concerns from the public. Does anybody wish to make a comment? Okay. Correspondence. Janelle, do you want to review the correspondence?
Sorry, Harley's back barking in the background.
We'll allow Harley, no problem.
There's in the packets, there's a letter from Lisa McDonald, and in there she states that she believes masks should be mandatory at all establishments until there's a vaccine. Then we also just recently received an email from Eileen True. That message says, we are postponing our yearly visit to Door County, where we have a home on Beach Road, because we are hearing horrible reports on the possibility of COVID-19 transmission because people are not respecting each other's distances, nor are they wearing masks when in stores. We find this situation unacceptable. Remember the signs out of stores that said, no shoes, no shirt, no service? So we can't tolerate bare skin, but we can tolerate the transmission of germs. If the grocery store's policy is anything goes, that certainly sets a reckless tone for the entire city. We are quite appalled and horrified and can't believe that no attempts are being made to keep people safe. I would love to believe otherwise, but this is the impression we are getting from the news tidbits that we can hear about you down here. And it was signed by Eileen True.
Any other correspondence?
I have none other.
Okay. Item number 1. Discussion regarding resolution 426 authorizing the issuance of $3,691,000 in general obligation promissory notes and the issuance and sale of $3,691,000 note anticipation note in anticipation thereof. Consider a motion for action if necessary.
So moved.
I'll second.
Discussion, any explanation?
I can provide some explanation. I believe Justin Fisher is on the call with us. This is the financing for the wastewater treatment plant. The interim financing rate came back at a rate of 1.25%, which is excellent. We were looking at 2.5% when we started this. So that's quite a bit better. I can let Justin fill in some of the details, and Bo, if you want to share
Justin,
what I sent you.
Justin, do you need to share the screen at all for a presentation?
Yeah, that would be great
if you go to the bottom, you should have a share screen button.
Yep.
And then you just click that and then share your screen, and then you pull up the page that you want, and everyone should be able to see that.
Okay.
But if you don't have it available, I have it, I'm sure, because I sent it to Bo.
There it is.
Oh, I got it.
Got it.
There we go.
Yeah, we can see your screen, Justin.
Okay, perfect. Well, thanks for having me this evening through the Zoom meeting. This is kind of the new norm, so I appreciate you being flexible, allowing me to call in and do this. As Tasha mentioned, this is good news for the village. We went out to many banks throughout the Wisconsin and the country to gather interest and potentially have them purchase this anticipation note with excellent results in that BMO was the purchaser for these interim notes at the 1.25%. So again, the issue summary here is that it is in the amount of $3,691,000. This note is going to close June 1 of 2020, and it matures December 1 of 2021. So during that period of time, that's when the construction of the wastewater treatment plant will take place, and hopefully by the end of next year be complete. So that point, the village will refinance this interim financing with the USDA Rural Development Loan. So the first interest payment on this loan is December 1 of 2020. It will be callable December 1 of 2020. It is non-rated. And again, the purchaser is BMO at a 1.25%. So this page is a lot of numbers on here, but on the left side, you can see the interim financing, the final numbers there. So that the total interest using a 1.25% is about $46,000. So based on where we were projecting at a 2.5%, this getting the lower interest rate saves the village about that $46,000. So excellent news for the village. We did field a lot of questions from potential purchasers worried about the COVID situation and how it would affect a community like Sister Bay that has a lot of tourism, has some sales tax associated with it, and so forth. So there are the interest rates in the muni bond world are very low right now, but municipal purchasers are also being a little cautious in kind of seeing what's going to happen with local governments and states as it goes as we go forward with sales tax and so forth, how it's going to be affected. So hopefully we continue to hear good news and that operations resume somewhat as normal over the next several months. But BMO was not concerned with that. They were familiar with Sister Bay and were willing to give a very low interest rate. So any questions for me?
So on the top of that, it looks as though the USDA, once we do refinance this, it says 2.75%. Is that what we're anticipating next year?
So our rate lock is 2.75%, I believe. I would have to look that up to be 100% certain. If the rate at the time of closing is lower than that, we would get the lower rate, but we cannot go higher than the rate we have locked in. And for $300,000 of this issue, we are locked in at 1.85%. So right now it's significantly lower. Most likely the way this project is laid out, we are expecting to close on the USDA loan probably in early 2021.
Okay.
So that's good.
Yeah, and so we set the anticipation note up to be able to be callable at the end of this year, knowing that the project may be at substantial completion early in 2021, so you can finance this loan and get rid of it, this interim financing, and replace it with the long-term USDA loan.
If the rates were similar, and is there a reason we would not try to lock this up now or can you just not do that? I mean, if you
You
get
can't do
1.25, can't do that. Okay, all right.
Nope.
Yeah.
It would be nice though.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions of Justin? Okay, if we can have our screen back.
Yes. Here we go.
I can do that for you, Justin, if you.
Yeah, is there?
There you go.
Okay.
There you go. Okay,
Thanks,
thank
Bill.
you.
Yep. Thank you, Justin.
Yep. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Justin.
Okay, any other questions of Tasha or about this particular issue?
I'm good.
If not, all in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you, Tasha, for all your hard work. Appreciate it.
Thank
Yeah, no
you.
problem.
Thank you, Tasha.
Item number 2, discussion regarding potential extension of the Village of Sister Bay Declaration of Public Health Emergency. Consider a motion for action if appropriate. I put that on here because we said we were going to review this prior to the end of the 60 days. The 60 days will be, I think, on the 17th. So today was a good day to discuss it. What I would like to propose is that we do extend it, and we extend it by 6 weeks, which would be roughly June 30th. And my thought process on that is it'll be coincide more along with what's going on with the bounce back program at that period of time. We'll be much further along, but it will allow us to get through some of the early holidays and some of the early opening part of the season. And if we need to do something on an emergency basis, we'd be able to do it. Up till now, we haven't had to use it, which is a good thing. But I think we should still keep it available should we need it. And Randy, you're free to chime in on this at this point in time. What your comment would be on this?
My thought it probably is a good idea to extend it. First of all, the state's declaration of emergency expired this week. I don't know if the governor plans on doing anything beyond that. I suppose he's waiting, as all of us are, to see what the Supreme Court's going to do. But the thing that makes this advantageous for the village to extend it at this point is the fact that in addition to having powers to take action in the event something happens that you need to control, this also might make a difference as to funding, because as I understand it, FEMA funds, which might be available to municipalities with regard to additional expenses, only apply to those expenses incurred while you're in an emergency declaration situation. So for that reason alone, it makes sense to extend this.
Okay, all right. Any other questions or discussions? So we would need a motion.
So moved.
I'll second it.
So Janelle, can you tell us what that motion is going to read back?
Sure. A motion was made by Burrows, seconded by Baker, that the village board approves of extension of the Village of Sister Bay's declaration of public health emergency for 6 weeks or until June 30th, 2020.
Okay. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Item number 3, discussion regarding an update on the village's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Consider a motion for action if necessary. So I'll start off. I don't know if you are aware of this or not. The public health meetings that we have been cut back to 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, instead of 5 days a week starting this week, because there's been less to report. As more and more programs are put in place to support things, public health doesn't have to be as involved directly on some of the minutia in particular. But our cases do continue to rise. I think we're up to 25 or 26 now. The latest cases involve McDonald's in Sturgeon Bay. So very similar to what happened at Culver's has now occurred at McDonald's. So I'm sure they will, I don't know all the particulars, but I'm sure they'll probably be closed for cleaning and tracking and all that sort of thing, trying to track down personnel that were close to the individual or individuals that were tested positive. They do continue to rise in Kewanee. Kewanee is very close to our same count. And of course, everybody knows what's going on in Brown County. That also has continued to rise. But the numbers at Brown County, they've been doing a lot more testing, and they've now opened up testing to anybody who wants testing. So you don't have to show symptoms. They just are doing community-wide testing right now. They're trying to determine the extent of the community spread. That has not been done in Door County, but based on the information we received today, right now the hospital has capacity to do quite a few more tests than what they're currently doing. Currently, pretty much anybody in Door County that would like a test just simply needs to contact the hospital. They will talk to you, but they would certainly offer you a test if needed without any problem. And at some point in time, the Emergency Operations Center will also probably look at doing more of a community-wide testing. It's really being pushed by the state to increase the testing and get a better read on the amount that's out there in the community. So don't be surprised if over the next week or 10 days or so, if somebody puts together a community-wide testing program, or there's a greater expansion of the testing program. Not for sure yet, but it's been discussed, and the state has been talking to public health about doing something like that. The excuse me. Another issue that's been brought up that'll be discussed tomorrow at public health and also at the county board meeting on Thursday. And I know we'll have more discussion about this in a moment, is the use of masks. And we are asking the public health department, we had hoped by today, if you recall last week's meeting, we had hoped by today that the Supreme Court would have made their decision and come down. We have a little bit more structure. We were also hoping that the state public health was going to come out with more guidance on masks, et cetera. That has not happened yet, but we're talking tomorrow and on Thursday about the mask issue. At the current point in time, public health is still saying at the state and federal level is still saying that masks are definitely encouraged, but on a volunteer basis, not on a mandatory basis. So that guidance has not changed. We are looking for them to maybe give us a better explanation or a strengthened explanation about the use of masks and why we should be wearing masks. So hopefully that discussion will happen in the next 24 to 48 hours at both those locations. Let's see what else. That's about all I have on my list, unless you have a question for anything I've talked about. And if not, then we'll go to, we'll start with Chris.
Good evening, everybody. Not a whole lot to report from the fire department or the coalition. We continue to support the communities up and down the county as best we can. We're doing a lot of work on the backside still on that mask issue, and they're sewing them as fast as they can, but we're not meeting the demand, unfortunately. We continue to support Gibraltar School. We hope that goes away the end of this week or early next week, and that they can take that back over themselves. That'll take some weight off of our shoes. And we continue to try to coordinate with the food co-op and ADRC, things like that, to try to, as we talk about potentially winding this down in May or early June, potentially, how we coordinate all that and where all the demand for food and services winds up going. Locally, the fire department outside of the coalition is in extended talks with SCAN about how we can continue to support them through the summer and probably well into the fall. So we will continue to do that without any issue, supporting them in groceries and in pharmacy runs and stuff like that, really working to try to minimize the outside exposure into the facility.
Okay. Are you still finding that your calls are decreasing a little bit?
Yes, they are, and we've talked about that at length, and that's a good thing. Ideally for us, through the month of May here, it'd be nice if they continue to decrease. Our biggest fear is that we get to some point, in the end, and we're still getting 15 calls a day for assistance, and it'd be very hard to turn this off if we have that kind of demand. People are figuring out ways. I think people are becoming more comfortable with what's going on. There's more masks and more PPE out there. Still not enough, but there are more. And people are finding workarounds or friends or family to do some of the things that we're doing. The other thing we're doing is seeing better cooperation from the pharmacies and things where they aren't calling us for every single prescription. They hold them as long as they can, bundle them, and then we're out making a run. Instead of doing onesie twosies, we're doing 6 and 8 and 10 prescriptions at a time. So just better use of our manpower, and as these alliances and partnerships grow, it's working better.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Chris? All right, thank you, Chris. Thanks for all you and your coalition are doing.
Yep, thank you, Dave. And I'll stay on the line here for a little bit, but I probably won't stay through the whole meeting.
Okay.
Thanks, Chris.
Mr. J.
Good evening, everybody. Peg, we're doing everything that we can. Last week, Wednesday, we did start out handing out masks to customers that didn't have them. We've gone through 100 of them already. We do have more, so we're going to keep up with that. They're not cheap, but we did find some. Tomorrow is going to be the first official day because I wanted to start it on Monday, but the wonderful wind in Door County took my sign down in front of the store that said about senior citizens and everybody from 9 until 11 must be masked to come in the store. So we have not had an attempt to try that, but we got the sign back up. So tomorrow we're gonna kick that off. All in all, most people are wearing masks and that come in the store. It's been very good, and it's just it's a few of them that don't, that you direct to the service desk, and a lot of them are going there to get them. So we're doing the best we can there. We're keeping the store clean as much as possible, sanitizing our carts. I think we're doing everything possible that we can. So, like I always say, my staff is doing an awesome job. And, I feel that we're doing all we can and we're doing a great job.
Thank you, Jay. I definitely agree. I've seen a change at the store, obviously, over the last several weeks, but I see, as you said, more and more people are showing up with masks from the outside when they come in. They already have their masks masked up, which is a good thing to see. And obviously, it took a little while. I used to laugh when I would go in there, my weekly trip. I'd go in there and I'd watch the arrows, and even I would get messed up for a while. But now I can see everybody's kind of got it down pat. They know to stop at the end of each aisle, look for the arrow, make sure they're going the right direction. So
it's getting a lot better with the arrows.
Any questions for Jay? All right. Thank you, Jay. Really appreciate it. Louise.
Okay, so while Chris is still on, I think we got 800 masks from Chris, and those were delivered to Sturgeon Bay because it matched up very closely with the number that Pam needed, and Pam is on the call tonight. So as he gets more, we'll distribute those. This goes to the first. We took a count for Chris for the firefighters on how many we needed for the first round early in the season. This is for all of our businesses in the county, for their staff, and then for the second round. So as I said, that first round went to Pam, and then we'll continue to distribute and hopefully get those done in the next couple of weeks. From an event standpoint, I think I sent all of the board members the press release that went out about the 4th of July. And I have to commend, really I had nothing to do with that press release. It was really the other coordinators that are taking the brunt, and it is the brunt of the blowback on canceling 4th of July festivities. They wrote it, and we strategized on when to release it and so forth. So that went to board, every community's board, and then it went to on Facebook at 2:00. And I would have to say, Pam, speak up if you'd like. On our Facebook page, most of the response was really very supportive. We had a couple guys that were, foul language and just not very nice, but that happens. And then, a lot of not great things in other places, but I would say over 50% were supportive, and other people were just, not very nice. But that goes with the territory. We have thick skin. That's just how it goes. And so, we'll live through that for the next couple of days. It is, I think Pam said, I haven't seen the news, but it was on all the local news channels in Green Bay picked it up. So it'll be probably on, it was on all of those at 5 o'clock tonight, and it'll probably be on all of the evening news channels tonight too. Then the next thing is that we did decide to cancel Brick Party by the Bay. We've been back and forth with the Wisconsin Lego Builder Group. I don't know how many times, trying to figure out how we could do it. And there was just, it's little pieces, and it's, you touch everything and you look at little things, and you can't look at little things that are this big when you're far away. And they couldn't figure out how to do it anywhere. So right now they're doing virtually. So that is, that was scheduled for July 18th. And I think everybody, we talked about this at Parks. I'm not sure everybody is aware though, that plein air, the quick paint has been canceled, and that was July 25th. So that's sort of where we stand with festivals and events at the moment. At Parks last week, we made the decision to suspend the bus operations for the summer. It's very disappointing for me personally, but we completely understand that we couldn't figure out a way to keep our drivers safe and keep passengers and residents and visitors and everyone else safe. And the capacity of the bus would have been about 6 people with social distancing, because it's not a big bus to begin with. So that press release went out last week. You probably all saw it. Next is Corner of the Past and Farmers Market. Looks like our Farmers Market will open up on June 27th. The hours will be diminished a bit, 9 to 1. And they're thinking they're going to open up Corner of the Past at the end of June. They're looking for a new docent. The good news is they have 5 or 6 people lined up, so that's great. And they're also still planning on having their garden walk, which is July the 9th. As far as calls coming into the visitor center, the calls have picked up a lot, and the majority of them, I would say the majority of them continue to be what's open. Most of them are centered around dining. Which of your dining properties, what's open. And then after that, it's into the future. So will the beach be open in July? Will the beach be open in August, and so forth, that kind of thing. But a lot of conversations about what restaurants are open. I did send to the board and to the board of the SBAA a study that was done by Longwoods. They do several studies. They're a market research group in the tourism industry, and they work with Destination Wisconsin, and they forward these to me. And sentiment's been pretty steady in terms of wanting to do travel by car, in terms of continuing to want to travel. Our big takeaways were that when they're looking for travel, they're looking for deals and offers, and that would probably be for sure in lodging, but probably even extend to dining and retail. They're also looking to support local business. So you can take a look at it, and they come out periodically, but the sentiments pretty much stayed the same. The next big thing that came out that affects all of our businesses that Governor Evers opened up small retailers. So as you know, that they opened up, and each retailer can have 5 people in their store at a time. So I would say that a lot of our retailers here in town were surprised by that, didn't expect it to come so soon. And I would say most of them are still preparing to open. They didn't open their doors that next day. Is Drew still on the phone? He is. Drew? Drew?
I'm here.
So you had, because there were some questions as it related to the order. Did you want to talk about that or no?
No, the biggest one I have that would be of interest of the village board would be the treatment of the sidewalk. According to the order, the businesses are supposed to have a line of people who want to come into the business and mark it in such a fashion that people are able to stay 6 feet apart. But I'm not sure. I wasn't clear on what was allowed on our sidewalk, which actually belongs to the Department of Transportation.
So it would have to be this is a guideline, it's not an order. Guidelines are guidelines. So if we took it literally, we'd have to mark it. And so we have, not just Drew, we've got Spot and so forth. So we just wanted to make, when Drew and I were talking about it, just make the board aware of that, because I'm not sure if you're not in the retail business, you probably didn't look real closely at that. But
it's a good point for us all to think about, because every business will have a line at some point this summer, I would imagine.
Yeah.
And I know we're thinking about that a lot, how we're going to do that, etc. But we need to be uniform as a village on how we're going to treat it. And I assume allowing some of these places to use the sidewalk makes sense, right?
So
I don't know
on,
where else they go.
we have,
Dave,
we have a
wondering if
parks.
you could talk about this at Parks on Thursday.
That's what I
Okay.
was just gonna say. We have a Parks meeting on Thursday. We can talk about it then.
Sounds good.
I was thinking that maybe what we could do so it's uniform throughout the entire village is use some kind of paint that eventually washes off or wears off. I think like what you used to do for Fall Fest when it was on Mill Road for
Yeah.
the crafters.
Yeah.
And just have the parks guys every 6 feet have a circle on the sidewalk, and it's just up and down town, and it doesn't matter where you are, whose business you're in front of. It's just there. It could be fun. We could make them different colors. I don't know.
Not to get, I guess, too much on that point, that's a good idea, but I think you could probably put the onus on the individual business owners if the paint is maybe provided, because that's a lot of extra work for the parks guys maybe, and we're gonna be on our property every day. But again, we can talk more on Thursday. I can see Dave looking.
And we still have the paint. I have a case of paint.
Okay, good.
Well, I got a deal on it, so I bought like 5 cases. So the other, and then the last thing is, Bo, we sent over the file for the banner for graduation. So
Yeah,
take a
I'm
look
gonna
at that, see what you think.
I liked it. I thought that the banner for graduation looked good.
Okay, it's really simple, you guys. You
Yeah.
know, it's the Gibraltar logo, which, by the way, anybody using it has to be approved. It has to be approved by Gibraltar, and says "Congratulations, graduates." So we'll figure out when we're going to put that up, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you for getting that done. That looked good.
That was easy. That was Maluska.
Did you want to bring up anything about the other signs?
Yeah, I can pull that up on the screen if that's what you want. The sign that we were talking about for
Sure.
parks.
Yeah, let's look at it. You bet.
Give me 1 second here.
This is the sign we talked about putting up down by the parks. Visitors to look at, read.
Suggestion, open to any kind of comments, but we were inspired by things we saw other places.
Give me 1 sec. It's taking a little longer than usual. Okay, can you guys see the screen?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I liked it. Louise, my one concern or something to address to maybe change on that wash hands before and after. I didn't really love that wording. I thought maybe changing it to wash your hands regularly might be just better.
Sure.
Other than that, I thought it looked good.
Yeah.
This is formatted for 12 by 8. And what I don't have is, and I have to work with parks, I don't have a price from the county. I think 12 by 8 is the smallest sign they might make. I don't know.
I think that's awful small, Louise, isn't it? Unless we have 50 of them throughout the park. And I actually like an after, Bo. It's much more specific. Regularly means what? I like before and after. Before and after, you do everything.
Okay. I just thought it sounded a little funky to me.
It sounded funky to me to do at first too. And I thought, well, we'll keep it and see what everybody thinks. So from a signage standpoint, you guys, this is what Jim's our sign guy. And he said the county has 12 by 18, 18 by 18, and 12 by 24. Something like this can be formatted any way we like. So we can, what I can do is I can go and look to see what this would look like on a 12 by 8. But what we did not discuss was where to put them, first of all. And I think for sure they definitely need to go at Corner of the Pass, but out at the sports complex and things like that. So we'd have to figure out where, and whether I do it with Danny or and Bo and stuff. And then figure out what the count is. And you're right, a lot of it has to do with how large it is, Denise. But a 12 by 8, you guys, just to kind of put it into perspective, is a little larger than one of our posters for our events.
I think you mean 12 by 18, not 12 by 8.
I'm sorry, did I say 12? I'm so sorry, 12 by 18.
Okay, because I was thinking it was the size of a piece of paper. Okay.
Yeah, that would be the size of a piece of paper. Thank you, Drew. See, Drew's been working with me for so long. He knows that How I am. 12 by 18. Thank you, Drew.
Hey,
So,
to Denise's point, possibly if we feel like we need to have bigger signs in certain areas, that would probably be a better thing for a banner. Just an idea.
Yeah, and we may want a couple different sizes depending upon where it is.
Yeah.
You know, just have made up that way to start with.
I agree.
I mean, we know that people don't read to begin with, and so the smaller it is, the more overlooked it will be. And do we plan on putting a banner on the corner of Mill and the highway, kind of the same verbiage?
basically, this is a lot to go on a banner. So what we can do is mock up something like that, would be something similar, right? This is a lot to put on a banner. So we'd probably edit a little bit, Denise, maybe?
Yeah, that's fine. I just think a banner is really important about, you.
Yeah, we absolutely would.
The parks close. So
Yep, we absolutely would, and we'll probably still keep the one that after graduation comes down, then we'll keep the one that we have for our essential workers at the top of the hill.
Okay.
I think whatever you guys want to do, but that's what we were thinking.
Okay. Anything else, Louise?
That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are we in agreement that the verbiage on the sign is okay? So we
Yes.
just
I'm
got to
good.
work out sizes and get them done. Okay.
So Bo, I'll hook up with you and Dan,
Yeah, that's fine.
figure out pricing and like where it should go and stuff. Okay.
Okay, so you're gonna leave the proposed verbiage like it is, wash hands before and after?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
so I'm sorry, now, do you want Louise to get a cost estimate for parks? Is that how you want it to go or what?
I'm gonna have to work with Parks on it because I don't even know who to call.
Okay,
I'll
so how
talk-
many do you want Louise to order?
I
We
kind of
won't know that till they figure out where they're going.
Yeah.
So she's going to work with Dan and with Bo to figure out where they're going.
Okay.
We'll get a count on it.
Okay,
My other question would be, I mean, and this maybe is for Pat or the Marina Committee. I'm not sure if we would use them really close to the marina or in the park near the marina, or whatever you guys think about that.
That's fine by me. You're going to have people walking throughout the park and the marina, so.
Okay.
Sure.
Should have good coverage throughout.
Yep.
All right.
Okay. John Lowry from Liberty Grove. Anything tonight, John?
Yes, thank you. We did extend our emergency order, excuse me, to the 17th of June, knowing very well that we probably have to extend it again.
Okay.
And on a more personal note, from our business standpoint, we are having several vendors contact us with sources for mask dispensers and so forth. So it looks like the activity in the country is really cranking up now. And we also are noticing people not wearing masks, which is considering what's going on is rather upsetting, but we'll keep our fingers crossed.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, John. Miles.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Just speaking of the sanitizer type stuff and masks, we have actually partnered with Hatch Distillery and FLS Banners to get some hand sanitizer stations that we will distribute. Our Paperboy company will distribute to people. So we'll be releasing some information about that tomorrow that people can pay, and then we'll restock them weekly, just like we restock racks and things. So there'll be more information coming out about that. We're also working with some places to create some posters for restaurants about welcoming diners, but here's what we urge you to do. Here's our promise to you. Here's your promise to us, kind of thing. Just trying to make a good message for people that do come here. There are a couple questions I had. Maybe Dave, you might know these, but as we've seen with Culver's and McDonald's, where they've had some cases, and Culver's, I believe, closed. What is the guidance for businesses if they do have staff? Like, what should they be expecting going into this? If somebody tests positive and you're talking about a small staff, whether it's a restaurant or a hotel with maybe 7 or 8 people, are they in a situation where they almost have to close if people are going to have to quarantine? Or
Well, this is not an official answer, but I'll give you what I know. The first answer would be to make sure you would contact public health, and public health would walk them through that and work with them through it. Whenever there's a active case at a restaurant or a business, they immediately start their tracking and back tracing to see what's going on. In the case of food, and you see that Culver's and the McDonald's, they have closed and are in the process of doing deep cleaning and sanitizing, the entire facility before they would reopen, and doing their contact tracing for whoever their employees were in contact with. But I also know that the public health department is now spending a lot of time doing contact tracing, and that, of course, will probably continue to increase as community spread continues to occur. Because for instance, I know at McDonald's, they are contacting close to 100 different people that they have to contact. That's a lot to do for an individual. To try and contact 100 people is a lot to do in a short period of time. So they are adding staff. I do know they have hired, I think, 4 additional people, and there's 2 or 3 more people coming on board. And then they're probably going to hire additional people and do some training with them if they don't have a medical background to begin the contact tracing. So they're gearing up for that. But the upfront answer is you obviously have to contact public health right away. And I think what happens as soon as they test positive, public health is probably contacting you as a business owner or the business to begin moving forward with what needs to be done.
yeah, my thought there is just that, okay, so one person tests positive in in the pulse situation, you'd imagine that everyone who comes in contact with that person would have to quarantine until they can get a test and a positive or negative test. You could pretty quickly shut down a lot of a business in that manner, as we've seen with McDonald's and Culver's. So
Sure.
I don't know what the policy then would be for a hotel full of guests if most hotels run on a small staff, and those staff come in contact. So I don't know if there's anything that those business owners should know, because suddenly you'd have potentially a 40-person hotel with 40 different people staying there and no staff.
Yeah.
That can actually
Again, we'd have to refer back to public health. I don't have the answer for that kind of thing. But I see that Chris wanted to make a comment.
So if we look at Gibraltar as a case study for a similar contact, they did not have a staff member that actually was that had COVID-19. They simply had an exposure of a potential COVID-19, and public health shut them down for 14 days, all staff members out of the building.
Wow.
Right. Thank you.
So I think, and I'll follow up with public health, but that's an interesting question of what do you do with a full hotel?
Right.
A restaurant is a little easier. You just stop serving meals.
Yep.
It's still just as bad for them. But and then the other thing that a bunch of business owners have asked me, and maybe there's more guidance on this now, but and maybe now that we have community spread, it's not as important. I'm not sure. But with employees, not just J1s, but let's say you have college students coming back to work from Milwaukee or Chicago or whoever elsewhere in the country, do they have to self-quarantine? And again, I don't know if you know the answer to this, Dave, but like, do we have a recommendation for that?
Well, the recommendation at this point in time is the state order, and the state order recommends self-isolation for the 14 days.
Okay.
But again, that's a question to ask public health. I know some businesses are getting thermometers. They're starting to check employees when they come in every day for fever it sets. So they're trying to do other things. The employee, that's a good question. The employees are going to be an issue, especially coming in from outside Door County to come and work.
Yeah, that's all I had. I just and not expecting you to have those answers, Dave, but just something to throw on the table for people to think about of what, as we reopen, there's going to be a lot of questions suddenly for a lot of these businesses. So far, it's been about, all right, what am I supposed to do? But then the ramifications of what do I do now if we have a case, kind of thing. So
yes. Okay, thank you. Did I miss anybody? I don't think I did.
Dave, could I make a comment?
Sure, John.
We've discussed that thermometer checking staff and or customers, and we've come to the conclusion that it opens up a lot of liability questions, both positive and negative.
Yeah, that makes sense. So are you gonna do it at your business, John?
We are not.
Okay. I will ask that of public health tomorrow because I have a 10 o'clock with them.
Hey, Dave, I have a quick question, and I'm not sure, maybe this is something for public health tomorrow, but
Sure.
in their daily situation update today, when they announce cases and so forth, we have 74 cases that are pending,
Mhm.
and that number looks like it's getting bigger.
It is.
I think that's a number that's bigger even than when it first started. Do we know why? I mean, this is not to be provocative. I'm just curious.
I have a potential answer.
Okay.
The hospital has started to increase their, not their marketing, but their media exposure to the fact that now anybody can be tested. And if you have a symptom or a cough or a sniffle, anything, feel free to contact the hospital and you can get a test done. So there's more people that are going for the test.
Okay. I just was, and I didn't know if that was, I didn't know, honestly.
Right. And I'm sure there's also some in there, and I don't know some of this background because of the HIPAA rules, but I know there's also probably some there that people that were contacted through contact tracing, and so they're probably having tests done to also verify whether they have it or not.
Yeah.
So that will increase some of the testing also. So between those two items, there's probably an increase there.
Right.
But they are as I said, they are ramping up. The state is really pushing to do more community testing.
Yeah.
And they're probably going to identify a site or two in Door County where they would come up and do community testing, where maybe the National Guard would get involved for a week or 10 days as they try and do a broad testing program. But
Okay.
they've already started in Brown County, and they're looking at Kewanee and Door.
Okay. Well, I know, we've had those, we've had a I wouldn't call it a web, we've had a Facebook Live with the medical center. Do you know if public health is going to do anything like that?
Public health does it with the hospital.
Right. And then do you know when the next one is? Are they having one soon?
Oh gosh, I don't have all the stuff in front of me. They do it on a regularly scheduled basis.
They do it Monday nights at 6.
Monday at 6.
Thank you.
Thanks, Miles. Yep. Okay. All right, so now we've had our rundown and we've heard from everybody, members of the board. What would you like to ask questions about or bring up, anything as far as the COVID-19?
I have a question, Dave. We've never talked about what's going on at the jail.
Okay.
Do you
Meaning,
know?
what's your question?
Do we have any cases out of there? Is everybody healthy and safe there?
To my knowledge, we have not had any cases at the jail, and everybody has been healthy and safe up to this point in time.
Okay.
Any other items to talk about?
Well, if nobody else has anything else, just I'm not going to discuss this tonight, but I'm also not going to let the issue drop tonight either. We were planning on talking again about masks because the Supreme Court did not rule. I'm going to hold down all of my arguments again, and I have new ones for everybody to hear. So you can all, wait with bated breath for that. Dave, you said something in your opening statements, and it's really nobody wants to say the buck stops here. Nobody has the kahunas to do it. And that I understand politically that we have people that want to have a mask mandate, and there's a small vocal group of people who do not. And sometimes I just think as we move forward that everywhere in the village, including the zoning code, it talks about the plan commission is there to protect the health, safety, and welfare. And I'll let it go on that until next week.
Okay, I understand. I don't think the mask issue is a dead issue at all. It continues to be discussed. I know it's going to be discussed heavily in the next 2 days at the county level. I guess I would add one thing. I did get a call from one of the legislatures today, remain nameless, but what was brought up was everybody's kind of surprised that the Supreme Court has not already done their ruling, since today was the day that it would have expired, the rule would have expired. But one of the things that was brought up was, what if the Supreme Court goes by the Constitution and doesn't delay the implementation? So let's say tomorrow they decided, yep, it's unconstitutional, we fine for the legislature. And they don't stay the order. They don't give anybody an opportunity to put a plan together and come back with something. That means that as of that moment in time, the order's gone statewide. Nothing exists statewide. What do we do then?
Really good question.
Right, right.
Well, how do you, I mean, how do you prepare for, I mean, I guess my question would be, everyone's busy preparing for the 26th. So I guess I would ask a retailer who didn't expect anything to come from Evers yesterday, right? But it would be something similar to that. But
well, it's kind of like a rhetorical question. Would you, at the county level, at the local level, then go ahead and say, well, wait a minute, we can't do that just like that. We can't let it just go. You know, do we think about saying, okay, well, look, here in Sister Bay or here in the county, we're going to maintain the basis of the Evers order until May 26th to give everybody time to put their plan together, if you will. But you could end up with 72 different counties having 72 different plans.
Right.
And I guess this individual is just trying to bring up the thought of, you know, that could happen. And if it does happen, how would you respond? And you'd have to respond fairly quickly. You couldn't respond a week later. You'd have to have a response really fast. So something to think about.
well, I was on the call with Joel Kitchens today, and you know, he had scheduled the call because he had hoped, you know, that the Supreme Court would have handed down their decision by now. And he mentioned, and there were several people probably on this call that were on the call as well. I think he had 90 people, and he mentioned that he favored, this is Joel, a more regional approach. So I don't know. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, no, I've heard that breakdown. So, okay, if there's nothing else on the COVID-19, we will move to the next item. Discussion on recommendation from the Marina Committee to approve construction of a 2-foot concrete wall along ADOT contingent upon the receipt of an acceptable written estimate. Pat?
So with continuing rising water, we've been reaching out to various neighbors and other marinas and contractors with potential solutions. If anybody's been down there at all or seen web footage of the last couple of storms, we have water really just sheeting right across ADOC. And so nobody's there now, so it's not that big of a deal. But as people and boats and everything else are there, it's more of a potential hazard. And so Russ Forkert at Yacht Works 2 years ago, they did this, put this 2-foot knee wall, and he said it helps significantly. So what we would, well, to back up a second, we thought we got a grant and we were not done with all that work yet, and we thought it was going to expire at the end of this year. And so we're kind of in the mode of, well, we need to do this now so that we don't lose. I think there's about $30,000 left in that grant to resurface A. We since found out that we actually have until the end of 2021. So this is not as time sensitive necessarily, although it would still be good to get done sooner than later. We're continuing to get bids, and we think it's a good idea, but it isn't as time sensitive. So wanted to at least make the board aware that we're looking at various things to do to keep the boats and the people safe, which might include this wall, and repair on J Dock that by the boathouse that's not, it's in rough shape. But we'll obviously come back with more firm written quotes and so forth, but at least grease the skids as to there'll be more coming.
Yeah, so just to clarify, that grant expires in June of 2021.
Okay.
Okay.
Either we would do work this fall or next spring. You know how the spring goes, though. If we have a spring where it's ice until May, next thing you know, you're running into construction problems getting done in June. So we'll see.
So are you looking for any kind of action from us tonight, Pat, or is this more of a FYI?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think when we met last Tuesday as the Marina, we were thinking, yes, what we want to do is we're actually going to put in for an amended grant, which needs to go in June 1, that we hopefully could seek grant funding for some or all of this wall. So as this works through, you know, I guess it would be good to know that the board is supportive of the committee's desire to do this to keep safe. We just don't know yet exactly what it's going to cost, how much of it the Marina might have to pay. Regardless, the Marina would fund all this. There's no cost to the taxpayers, nothing coming out of the general fund. But, you know, being a committee structure, this is what we need to do to keep the board aware and make sure the board approves the recommendations.
Okay. Well, I certainly don't have a problem with it, Pat.
So again, obviously we would come back looking for an approval at some point. We're not there
Right.
yet, but it's
Right. But I mean, as far as going ahead and looking at the project, getting estimates and everything else, I don't think anybody has a problem with that.
okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Before we get to our last item, I wanted to ask Randy, based on our conversation, is there anything you want to add or interject? You'll have to push your mute button. There you go.
You know, I'm surprised as everybody else is that the Supreme Court hasn't come forward, because I think a lot of people are waiting on that to see what their next steps will be. But I guess I'll say this. I don't think the village nor any other municipality is going to be left hanging in the breeze, so to speak. If I was to guess, I would say that the governor and the Department of Health have a contingency plan in place. I suspect that the governor would make another emergency declaration and issue another order immediately if the last one's thrown out. And that's kind of what I anticipate happening.
And he can do that again? Or
there's nothing saying he can't do it again, right? Yeah, you know, there's going to be some political wrangling about this whole thing before we're done. Yeah. But I doubt that he's going to leave 72 counties and who knows how many municipalities all trying to fend for themselves and how to protect themselves.
Hey, Randy, quick question. One of the theories I heard as to why they didn't release their decision yet is that in fact, the court is working on more guidance with this. Are they allowed to do that? Is that just a friend heard it from a state representative? So is that possible that that's part of their delay, is they know they just can't throw it out to the wolves, so to speak, and they're working on releasing more with it? But I don't know if they can in their role.
Yeah, their role would not include guidance, but it was certainly a concern of theirs during the oral arguments that you know, they were asking the questions. Okay, what happens if this order goes away? Well, what do we do then? What does the state do? And of course, the answer from the assistant attorney general is people are going to die. Yeah, and that wasn't really what they wanted to hear. But that's, you know, I think that's a concern of theirs, but they're not in the business of providing guidance. They're in the business of providing interpretation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Randy.
Sure.
Okay, last item, discussion regarding matters to be placed on a future agenda referred to committee, official, or employee. I have one thing. Next week would be committee appointments or assignments. So during this upcoming week, I will be contacting each of you to discuss committees and committee assignments. So have your list ready of everything that you want to be on. things you want to get off of, things you have no interest in, so I can put you on those in particular. And then we'll go.
That
from
one look
there.
good, Dave?
Yes, right. So anything else to be added?
I think that's it.
If not, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
I'll make that motion.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're now adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
guys.
Thank
Appreciate it.
you.
Everybody.